Hello again, YouTube. This particular question is actually something that's a little bit near and dear to my heart. So I, Lovell Hawes, a prior enlisted combat engineer, am going to bring this question up. Why do certain politicians believe there are weapons of war on the streets? This stems to the gun control debate, and it focuses around the AR-15. And as typical, as what is appearing to be typical with a lot of my videos, there's a little bit of a history lesson involved with each of these. And when it comes to the AR-15, if you look into the history of the AR-15 and M16, and there are documentaries that I have even found on the History Channel from long ago that actually point out the AR-15 was developed first as a sport rifle. It was basically meant for competitional target shooting. Basically, you go into a range and you try and see how accurate you can get rounds on target as quick as you can, and you're timed off with a little beeper, so you go beep, bang, 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 beep, and your score is tallied from there. The most accurate shooter, who happens to be the fastest, wins the competition. That's part and parcel of what the AR-15 was built for. The M16 was developed later. The very rifle that went to Vietnam, and in fact, it had to undergo significant modifications because it was far from perfect. It jammed a lot. And some egghead in DC thought, oh, they're so advanced that they don't even need cleaning kits. Well, there was a lot of GIs who died because somebody didn't issue cleaning kits for the M16 at first. So through the modifications plus adding on the cleaning kits, and even issuing out magazines that teach you how to clean your, and I quote, Sweet 16. Well, after all of that, most of the malfunctions and jam issues were straightened out. And even now, the M16 is still not the best as far as field weapons. You have to maintain them religiously. Having had one, having been in the field a lot with my M16, yeah, it is a daily cleaning regimen. You have to do it every day, whether you fire it or not. It does not do well if you let dirt get in the weapon. Okay, that being said, AR-15 came first, and when it was developed, which was in the late 50s, by the way, one could still participate in a shooter's club through your public schools and go back to your school after class with a 22 caliber rifle and target shoot with your friends. So, the rifle obviously wasn't what changed, because as soon as the AR-15 showed up, shouldn't it have gone people going, and I'm going to use a quote from the 80s, people going postal? Well, that didn't happen now, did it? Because the mass shootings should have took off in the 1950s. And to my knowledge, the only two mass shootings in the 2 decades between the 50s and the 60s weren't even supposed to be mass shootings. One was a presidential assassination, Kennedy, and both took place with bolt-action rifles. The Texas A&M shooter used a Remington 700. The Kennedy assassin used another bolt-action rifle, an Italian old bolt-action rifle, old even for the time. Well, that kind of changes things, doesn't it? It's like, so it kind of blows a hole in the argument. So, if it wasn't the rifle that changed, what did? Well, let's look back to the 50s. What else was different? Well, there was duck and cover was a thing, which, okay, that was a part of the Cold War. That probably wasn't it, because telling people to duck under your desk, what does that have to do with a rifle? So, what else was different? Let's see. Oh, how about this one? People showed each other more respect. Even if you didn't like the person, if you were a young man or young lady at the time, and you were talking to your elders, it was yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And even if you were a delinquent, if you were talking to a police officer, you would say, "Yes, officer," or "No, officer." "Yes, sir," "No, sir," "Yes, ma'am," "No, ma'am." It was very respectful. Everybody was more respectful to one another and had more respect for themselves because they would do more to earn the respect for themselves. A young man could go out on a bicycle and have a paper route. Before he was even 18, he could have had a job and been proud of the fact that he actually made money. He would actually have that money. He could turn around and go get something for himself. He had a sense of self accomplishment, a bit of respect he got for himself. And he would carry that respect with him throughout his life, a little bit of self reliance along with it. And young ladies would learn skills that would carry them through life as well. We call it commonly home ec these days. But that was just a sign of the times. Some of those skills, it's like, honestly, a young lady these days who just got her driver's license could probably take up a paper route now. 16, driving, cool. I live in Virginia, so you can get a paper route for the Roanoke Times and make it so that way my grandparents don't have to complain because it was late today. Please. And you can make a little bit of money while you're at it. And they would be very happy to see their newspaper, and you would have the sense of respect of actually making sure that you're making somebody else's lives just a little bit better. Towards that end, I would also advocate for teaching the pacifist martial art in public schools, from the time they're in kindergarten all the way up to the time they graduate high school. Aikido. It emphasizes using joint and nerve manipulation and also keeping in mind the welfare of not only yourself, but your opponent at the same time to the students. Now, of course, if parents don't want their kids to learn Aikido, they can opt out. It's like, but honestly, I personally would like to see it be taught more frequently. And if not Aikido, if the parents want something that's a harder martial art, let them. Personally, I favor Krav Maga, Shito-ryu Karate, and Muay Thai. But harder martial arts that definitely have a little bit more bite to them than Aikido. But at the very least, I'd like to see people learn Aikido. It teaches respect for yourself. It teaches respect for even your opponent while you're beating your opponent. And it also teaches that self-reliance and self-defense. A couple things that I think we could all agree is a good thing. And it doesn't use any weapons at all. Joint and nerve manipulation only. So even if you are anti-gun, it gives you a little something to think about too. It gives you a sense of a peace of mind. And it gives everybody who wants people to be able to defend themselves a peace of mind. And it also tackles what I personally believe is the central problem. Less self-respect and less respect for everybody else out there. So, that is what I believe has changed. So why is it they believe that it's a weapon? Why do they believe there's weapons of war? Well, the term that they're using for weapons of war, assault weapons, has such an open and ambiguity. It is open and not exactly clear. There is a rifle that the British used in the 19th century in Africa called the Martini Henry. It would be banned by assault weapon bans because it has one feature of what they would describe as an assault weapon. Even though it is a single shot rifle where most people can only fire about 10 rounds a minute with the thing, and it's not exactly like you're going to be clearing rooms with it because the thing's all almost as long as a darn spear. Well, what is the one thing that makes it so that way the Martini Henry would be illegal under assault weapon bans? Oh my, you can stick a bayonet on it. Which, last time I checked, being again from Virginia, the last time Virginians were being bayoneted en masse, the year was 1865 and we were at war with each other. Depending on which side of the border at the time you were in, if it was 1865, if you were in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, you'd called it the war between the states. If you were from New York, Pennsylvania, Maine, or Massachusetts, you called it the War of Secession. Either way, these days we call it the U.S. Civil War. So, last time I checked, 1865 was almost 160 years ago, 157 to be precise. So, why is the Martini Henry on the assault weapon list? And that is similarly true for a lot of other classic military rifles. You can't have a Lee Enfield because it's capable of mounting a bayonet, of having fixed bayonets. You can't have an M1 Garand because same reason. You can't have an M1 Carburetor, same reason. You can't, under the people who have these assault weapon bans, that's how stupid that is. And it has no effect on the function of the rifle. In fact, in some cases, it hurts it. Having your bayonet on it actually can hurt your accuracy because it's an extra piece of the puzzle that actually moves around. And movement on the rifle while you're trying to take a shot can actually hurt your accuracy. And not only that, but it also hurts your ability to do what in the Marine Corps we called CQB, Close Quarters Battle. Well, close quarters battle is when you're kicking down doors and there's a bad guy on the other side of in the room. And yeah, and if you that little extra bit of metal on the end of your rifle actually makes it so that way presenting your rifle to fire is actually a problem. It is more length on your weapon, and the shorter the weapon, the better in that sense. So the only reason you would actually have bayonets fixed is if you think you're going to be in a CQB environment, is if you think you're not going to have a chance to reload or get more ammunition. The last time I even heard of a bayonet being used in combat was the Battle of Fallujah in 2004. And that was because Marine needed to reload, and there was a jihadist right in front of him, so he decided to rush him. That being said, good job, Marine. You got the jihadist. But I haven't heard of it since, and it still may happen. I mean, even though it is a day of drones and laser-guided munitions, Ukraine could easily devolve into hand-to-hand combat where, guess what, the bayonet's going to be one of the weapons used. But how likely is it? Not very. Not very at all. So, with what is the description of an assault weapon, all of the features listed are generally just something that has no effect on the weapon's functionality. Pistol grip, who cares? It's just how comfortable you are with the way the weapon's held. Some people actually don't like pistol grips. Personally, I could go either way. Don't care. Broom handles, psh, I don't care either way on that one either. I have a slight partial favor towards the broom handle. Bullpup, which is considered an exotic feature, automatic assault weapon feature. I have yet to find a bullpup I like. Having fired the Steyr AUG while I was in Australia, having fired my own Walther G22, It's like I actually don't like either of them. I think I found one. I think the Israeli-made Tavor might do. But I haven't tried it out yet, so I don't know. That being said, the only real change that it makes, the only thing that it might do, is it shortens the overall length of the rifle. So even though you have the same length of barrel, same accuracy, it makes it just a little bit more effective in CQB. Just a little. And I've noticed it, I've seen it, and yes. But in all honesty, I don't see how it would really make that much of a difference. In fact, here's a little bit of fact. You can still get a full automatic weapon in the form of a Class 3 firearms permit. You get that, you can get a BAR, an MG34, a modern M240 machine gun. You could even get a minigun. And all of it would be completely legal. Granted, very, very, very expensive for the weapon system. Because I'm pretty sure you probably have to drop about $20,000 to get a 50 caliber. Not to mention, ammunition ain't cheap. So, but nobody has committed a crime with a legally obtained full automatic. Nobody's taken the time to permit out a 240 and commit a crime with it. In fact, the only full automatic crime that I'm aware of that's happened in the last 40 years was committed by the North Hollywood shooters, and the weapon systems they used were illegal already. So they were already illegal. They were banned out of existence long ago in California by that point, and yet they still used it in the commission of a crime. So how could that be? So so if they couldn't have the weapon, but they had them and they committed a crime with them. But yet nobody who legally took the time to permit these things committed a crime? Que curioso. You could actually still legally make a tank, like a Sherman or a T-55 or T-72, fully operational. So you could even have high explosive rounds and full automatic capability on the machine guns. It just as if it was ready to roll onto the battlefield. And it could be legally done. It's just a matter of the permitting. Granted, it'd be so ridiculously expensive that most people can't afford to do it. And I actually argue that because it is so ridiculously expensive, they aren't going to. Because if you're gonna, it's like I've actually found a website where you can buy a Sherman tank, just the tank. It doesn't count all the other permitting and all the other work you have to do to it to make it fully operational. But you can get a Grizzly Sherman for about $300,000. At $300,000, you could buy just about any house in Rockbridge County, except for some of the really expensive ones, or any other rural county in Virginia. So, who would sink that kind of money into something just to commit a crime with it? Not happening. Yeah, it's like even some of the people that are that are crazy rich, like even Bill Gates would think twice before doing anything that stupid. Because by the time you're done, by the time that tank's ready to rock and roll, you're probably dropped $1.5 million on it. Even Bill Gates would be like, all I'm gonna do is take it to the range and fire it every once in a while, or maybe just drive it around just for the sake of driving it around. And I'm not gonna do anything dumb with it. So seem to have gotten a little bit off track here, but still relatively on point. But why is it that anybody thinks there are full automatic weapons on the street when they're generally not? I don't know of anybody who has a Class 3 permit. And even if they did, I'm not sure they'd want to pipe up, because that means somebody is admitting to owning a full automatic. Why is it that people can't tell the difference between what they deem an assault weapon and just a simple, fun, go to the range, shoot some targets kind of gun? Well, I leave it to you and your research, because I believe I may be onto something about us losing respect for one another. Teach that respect, and I believe the problem will begin to resolve itself. This has been Lovell Hawes, prior enlisted Marine Combat Engineer, and I hope you have a good day, and make sure to share this with all of your appropriate representatives.